8, 7, 6. Well, as my viewers at home can see, I'm in the process of being mugged by these two big guys sitting on either side of me. No, I'm just kidding. I have two very good friends. One is a renowned author, educator, activist, quite a few other things. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time in the calendar to describe all that Mr. David Strahahm has been into. And the other gentleman, you are still the, what are you, chairman now for the Manhattan branch of the Green Party?
No.
Okay.
No, Daniel Vila now is the chair of the Manhattan Green Local, but I stayed on as a secretary.
Okay, so now you're the secretary.
Right.
Right. As you know, or might not know, I was a former member of the Green Party, and I should mention that for the sake of clarity, that I was a member of the Green Party. I am no longer a member of that party for various reasons. However, my friend has also been a great fighter in the cause of human freedom and human dignity in this country, and then particularly here in New York City. And oddly enough, both of these gentlemen, I don't think I could be criticized for saying this, both of these gentlemen, including myself, you see before you three men of the left, and oddly enough, all three of us are veterans. One of us actually is a combat veteran. So I find that very ironic with you have a president that's a proven racist and a proven buffoon and a proven phony, and he talks so much about patriotism. Remember how he flies off every time he sees one of the black football players kneeling at the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner with the American flag, kneeling now, not trying to burn it or spit on it, but just kneeling. And he cries about how unpatriotic it is. This is a man who went through, so far, 4 generations, going on 5 generations, himself being a 3rd generation, and has never, out of all those generations, has never served a day for his country. And yet he is so quick to talk about who does and who doesn't love America. You know, this is the guy that has more Russians going in and out of his house than Dr. Zhivago. And I just find it so ironic that the three of us here would be classified as leftists. And yet the three of us here put our lives on the line in defense of that flag and of this country. So for you folks out there who still consider yourselves to be followers of Herr Trump and consider yourselves to be patriotic Americans, that's something that you need to digest and think about. I'm not going to go through my usual 10 to 15 minute spiel today because I have both of these gentlemen here, and I want folks to hear their feelings about where we stand now, where we're heading in this country, and the dangers ahead, especially racially and economically, because those are the two big red lights that I see down the road. That's what worries me the most. The fact that one half of the country seems to really disparage the other half, and the fact that Donald Trump is doing everything he can to destroy what's left of our economy. So without further ado, we're going to start it off with tell the family your name. Tell them who you are.
Well, I'm Tom Siracuse, and I've also been very concerned about what's been happening and what has been happening for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I came across a short statement here that sort of summarizes what this forum is about today.
Uh-huh.
It says that people are losing their homes and their apartments. They're sleeping on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Utilities like water and heat are being shut off. Military spending has skyrocketed, while pensions are being cut to the bone. Many people don't care about our disabled veterans who served as cannon fodder in our country's imperialist wars.
Mm-hmm.
People are losing their jobs through no fault of their own. Private bankers and corporations have billions, while working people live from paycheck to paycheck. Obscene student debt prohibits our young people from getting a quality education.
Mm-hmm.
Innocent people are being gunned down in the streets. Victims of domestic terrorism every day all across the country. State-approved terrorism in our neighborhoods targets African Americans and other racially oppressed working people. There is no economic justice for working people. Civil rights are increasingly under attack, and the epidemic of racism is on the rise.
Okay.
So my question is, what's causing this? And this is nothing new, by the way. What has been causing this? I have an answer, but I think I'll...
well, before you give us your answer...
I won't give the answer yet, but my answer, that is.
Okay, well...
But I just throw this out.
All right, well, let me put it this way. Before you get any more into depth than that, I want to hear what our comrade, Mr. Strahahm here has to say about that.
You know, I agree with most of the things that Tom has just talked about. But I think the most important thing for the people, the masses of people that live in the country, and is to understand the system that they're living in. They're living in a rapacious capitalist system that is more effective in accomplishing the goals of capitalism than any other place that I know of on earth. It is more successful. And the nature of the system is not letting people know that there is a war against the people going on. It's the capitalists against us. They run the place. So if you don't understand, as a person living here, how the system works, if you have no idea that about system analysis, then they've got you. What they have in mind is one thing, that is to make profit for themselves, and they're doing that more successfully each passing day. So in order to manage this, it's absolutely necessary to take the mass of people that live in the country and divide them up. Men against women, blacks against whites, young against old, and all the ethnicity against ethnicity, and all the ways you can divide people up, they think of and they put into effect. So if this is the case, what happens is then they're able to do what is necessary for them to make that profit. So everything is to reach the goal of putting profit into their bank accounts. And most people haven't got a clue of how the system works. That is the problem we have. People don't learn it in primary school, in secondary school, or tertiary school or colleges. People are clueless of what's going on. So the way this is successfully done is to go inch by inch. They move very slowly. They take away one thing after another, slowly but surely. And they're getting better and better at it every day. So when you think about the people who run the country in the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary, you need to think that they have not the interests of the people who live here at all. They work for the ruling class, the oligarchs and other plutocrats that run the place, and they don't represent you. They're not your representatives. They can't be. They are vassals. They are absolute vassals to the ruling class and the ruling class interests. They will do everything to get your attention away from the real issue. It's no different than a bullfighter who gets the bull's attention to follow the cape instead of the man with the sword that's going to kill the bull.
Okay.
And that's what's happening to the people.
Now, for the sake of transparency, as I said, I am a Democrat. I can be best categorized as a left-wing Democrat. And for the sake of time, I'm basically going to have to do a lot of questioning of essentially both of what you guys are saying. Now, you made a comment just now about the our representatives not functioning at all, for the most part, for the people, for the good of the people who elected them. Now, a young lady that I have come to know very well, Miss Ocasio, Alexandra, won a phenomenal victory within the Democratic Party. She is a Democratic socialist, but she ran as a Democrat, as we all must do, if we decide to run as anything other than a Republican. And she whipped the guy that's been in there in that seat for 20 years. He represented the part of the Bronx and Queens. And what she has to say, what her platform is a very good platform. As a matter of fact, basically all she is saying is very reminiscent of the same type of things that the Democratic Party was saying, believe it or not, back in 1936, because I looked it up. And the people love it. So I think that you have to be a little careful when you say that there aren't people out there within the Democratic Party that are willing to go and fight for the best interest of their working class constituents. We have to be careful about that.
Well, the point is this. You'll always have a couple of mavericks around. But I'm not saying 100%. Look what happened to a maverick like Cynthia McKinney. they got rid of her.
Well, let me.
See, so the point is that
Yeah, but see, I think what you need to understand.
you cannot depend on these capitalist parties
What you
to
need
serve
to
the interests of the
right.
people.
And I don't want to belabor this point because we don't want to take up too much time because I want to get something on the here with Mr. Syracuse. But what's happening now, and this is what is causing the shock wave. What's causing the shock wave is the fact that her views, her ideas, they're quite similar to yours. And to a very large extent, she's more far left than you are, which I guess would scare the hell out of folks in Nancy Pelosi's circle, to be quite honest about it. But it's catching like wildfire. And I wanted to also ask you, what do you think about that? What's happening in the Democratic Party? What do you think of the fact that the rank and file Democrat, the people like me, the average Joe and Jane Democrat, that the Democratic Party will need this November and in 2020, are basically going for democratic socialism, and they are not going for Nancy Pelosi, what do you want to call it, Pelosiism? Or what do you think about that?
Well, for the sake of honesty, I have to let people know that I don't belong to any party. I'm an independent person. I don't belong to the Democrats or Republicans. See, when you ask me a question like that, to me, I see it as somehow trying to get a man-eating tiger. A man-eating tiger, that's the Democratic Party, and turn him into a vegetarian and having a completely vegan diet. The Democratic Party, just like the Republican Party, are both capitalist parties. They are not run by people who run out and pull a lever or punch a computer for a vote. They're run by ruling class people who are at the top of the pile and run the party and let you vote on the people that they select. That's how the party runs, as well as the Republican Party. It's the same thing.
I don't think you get my point. But we're going to come back to that. Now, Brother Syracuse, what do you think is going to happen this upcoming November? Do you think that we are going to be able? And when I say we, I'm essentially talking about the what's left of the sanity of the American people. Because remember, the people who find Donald Trump to be abhorrent and to be disgusting and who find him to be extremely dangerous, they are still the majority. I think a lot of times people seem to forget that. What do you think will happen this November? Do you think we'll be able to really slow this guy down and start making a way to perhaps try to repair some of the damage that has been done to this country because of him and his followers?
I suspect that the Republicans will lose control either of the House or more likely of the Senate, but I don't think that that will bring about any significant change. I agree with David here that we live in a system that puts maximizing profit above all else, even if this profit may very well destroy the planet. And the wealth of this country has been monopolized by a few people who have so much power and wealth that they have bought up everything, especially the political system, and that includes the two major political parties. Both of them are sold out, they're bought out by this tiny ruling class. The differences between these two parties are minimal and not significant. In fact, there are some people, like you've heard of Glenn Ford of the Black Agenda Report.
Yeah, I know Glenn Ford.
Right, he came out with this famous statement that about the lesser of the two evils. He said the Democratic Party is not really the lesser of the two evils. It is the more effective of the two evils, because it has bamboozled the American public into thinking that it can be reformed.
Well,
that there are that even though, and of course you do, there are times when somebody like Ocasio-Cortez, who purports to be a socialist, or Bernie Sanders, who purports to be a socialist, seems to be making some headway in this party. But we have to look at this thing from an historical point of view. If you look at the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, from the time that they were founded, both were under the control of the ruling class. I just wrote an article that I sent to you, I don't know whether you've read it yet, called The Great American Myth, that we have been brainwashed. And I don't blame the American people or the so-called working class or the white working class for being brainwashed.
Well, that's where you and I disagree, but go
ahead.
ahead.
You and I disagree on that one because most people, where are they going to get their information from? It's not easy. You come home from your job and you're tired out. You've already been brainwashed through the school system.
And you're getting information from your enemy.
And so you turn on the TV or the radio,
your enemy,
thinking that maybe you're going to get some news. And what you're doing is you're just getting brainwashed even more. So I wrote this article called The Great American Myth, because one of the things that we have been brainwashed into thinking is that this country was founded as a democracy. This country was not founded as a democracy. It was founded as I would call it a plutocracy, that the founding fathers were either slave owners, wealthy merchants and traders, and you certainly, when they called the Constitutional Convention, you didn't see any shoemaker or working class person in this convention. Why did they call that convention in the first place? Because right after the Revolution, you had 13 independent states, and they levied tariffs against each other, and there were all kinds of problems.
Well, the reason,
let me finish.
Let's wrap this up.
That I want to make. However, the only people that were allowed to vote, and that was during the Articles of Confederation, and that was also after the Constitution was ratified, were white men who owned property. But the majority of white men who owned property at that time happened to be small family farmers. And they were beginning to take over these state governments to the chagrin of the wealthy. They began to actually reject the debts that were being that the wealthy were trying to collect through the government. And then you had this thing with the Constitutional Convention. And the word democracy was not looked upon with any favor by the founding fathers. In fact, James Madison himself called democracy the rule of the mob.
Okay, now, just
So
to,
that's the way this country was.
just to clear
That's
up
the
a
way this
point,
country has been.
that's
And that's the way the country is now.
that's to clear up a point, to get us back on track. When I'm going to have a history lesson, then I'm going to make sure that I announce a history lesson. All right, let's get some facts straight. Number one, the United States, at the time of the beginning, what time period are you talking about? What colonies are you talking about? Where in the United States are you talking about? Because different colonies were formed under different charters. Pennsylvania was not formed the same way Massachusetts was formed. Massachusetts was not formed the same way that Virginia was formed. Okay? Get that out the way. Number two, as far as property, okay, at that time, let's give it a date, 1776. Well, at that time, the 13 colonies were probably the best opportunity, the best example of where people could actually be able to vote and to own property. Okay? This was unheard of in old Western Europe. Okay? So in comparison to what you had in the West, in the rest of the Western world, yeah, America was sitting pretty damn good. The problem was that if you were a Native American, if you were a woman, and especially if you were an African American, then you were, as they would say, out of luck, because you were not allowed to vote until in Massachusetts, 1790 something. I believe the blacks got the right to vote in Massachusetts and Vermont somewhere around the 1790s, which was rare, but it did exist. See, that's not the real issue, okay? And as far as democracy, that's what came about with the at the end of the War of 1812, where you have Monroe, then you had Andrew Jackson, and you have this burgeoning of the working class being able to attain the right to vote. And see, this is the thing that always struck me as strange about America, because while America was still in a colonial status, more Americans had the right to vote here as colonies than folks in England had to vote in Parliament in England. So there is some hypocrisy. The problem is that people not knowing history don't understand that hypocrisy. Okay? But I think that what we're doing when we start trying to deal with arguments like that, especially at a time and a place where people are less literate now than they were, say, in 1945, okay, we're kind of taking folks a bit off track, okay? Because comparatively speaking, up until about the 1970s, America was, how should I say, in terms of upward mobility, America was the place where you wanted to be at, to be upwardly mobile. Unfortunately, after we get into the 1970s, and I'm not talking about the race question at this point either, okay? I'm just talking purely economics. But what happens in the 1970s, you had that clown, and I do mean clown, Nixon's buddy on the Supreme Court. And he got together with the American Chamber of Commerce. And they wrote each other back and forth saying, looking at your pal, Ralph Nader, And, he was really doing a great job of standing up to the corporations and what was happening. And they said, hey, we got to slow this guy's roll because they have the fear that working class people will be able to stand up through the ballot box and slow down any of the things that corporations were trying to do. And that's when you had the Republicans first begin their adventure into the federal court system. And they've been at it ever since. And that's the problem that we face now. As a matter of fact, that's the problem that we face in this upcoming week. Now, I want to ask both of you a question. How are we going to handle this? See, I'm talking about questions that people have to face. It's facing them now, tomorrow. When they wake up tomorrow morning, these are issues that they're going to have to face. What is this 22, 23-year-old young woman living in Arkansas, living in Missouri, what is she going to do? When Donald decides to pick the most right-wing justice for the Supreme Court, and she says, no, we're going to end the federal right to an abortion. And if you're not living in New York or Connecticut or Massachusetts, you're shit out of luck. What happens?
Well,
explain that to me.
What you're saying is, how are people going to handle the situation as it gets worse? But if they don't understand what has happened in the past, if they don't understand their own history, they will not be able to handle it. They will be vulnerable to falling under the influence of demagogues, and we may very well slip into an out-and-out fascism. Only understanding what this country has been about and how to deal with this there will be hope that people then will be able to organize an opposition to all this is what's going on. This opposition, however, will not come from the Democratic, never mind the Republican, but it will not come from the Democratic Party.
See, this is the problem. This is the problem. And see, this is the nonsense that caused us to have the most villainous human being, even worse than Woodrow Wilson. So right now, we have probably the worst president since James Buchanan. Are you familiar with James Buchanan? I mean, you're sitting up here talking history.
What do you mean this is the problem?
This is the problem.
What is the problem?
The problem is that when you make statements, when you and people like Glenn Ford.
Are you saying that we are the problem for the situation?
I think that when you tell people
that Glenn Ford and that Tom Siracuse and these small leftist groups, we are the problem.
I don't think.
Are you saying this?
I don't think that you mean to be.
Well, whether we mean to be or not, are you saying that we are the problem?
Well, let me ask you this: Do you think that it's wrong to basically choose the lesser of two evils? Do you think that's wrong?
Because you're going to get just another.
Well, then that's part of the problem. I'm sorry, brother. That's part of the problem.
The problem is not people that are saying
ask those
that
kids.
The two corporate parties are corrupt, and the problem is not the people who are saying it. The problem are the two.
No, it's not you as a person.
Themselves.
No. I'm not saying you as a person.
The problem is the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both corporate parties controlled by the ruling class.
Excuse me a second. Let me get to my show here.
That's the problem. Not people that are criticizing the system.
One thing, when we're doing this show...
The problem is the system.
Hold on a second. I have to also keep an eye on the time. Family, what we're having here, and this is the crux of the debate, And you see this is a debate that's been going on. You see the same thing take place on Bill Maher's show on HBO. How we wound up with Donald Trump in the White House in the first place. And one of the things that we have to understand, and see, people don't like it. I had a huge argument in 2016, right before the election in 2016, with a place of employment of a young lady that I used to speak to quite a bit. And we had one hell of an argument because apparently there was some fondness there, but she did not like my penchant for constantly dealing in politics. And I asked her, I said, well, don't you think that this is something necessary? And she answered me, oh, well, I just don't get into politics. And about the last kind words I said to her was, well, either you're going to get into politics, Karen, or politics is eventually going to get into you. And I will say that she was a Jamaican. And I think I think her moms was still going through her thing for the green card. I only hope that was all taken care of, because people with green cards definitely have to be on their P's and Q's now that we have Donald Trump in there.
Why do you think that so many people are cynical and so many people have given up on the system?
I think
are they the problem? No, it's the system that's the problem.
I'm glad that you're bringing this up, and I think it's necessary. I think it's very necessary, because see, people need to understand something. Being born in America is just like being born on a basketball team. When you're on a team, you have certain rules that you have to follow. If you don't follow the rules, you find yourself on the bench, or you can even find yourself kicked out and being sent to the locker rooms. And it's the same way in terms of your citizenship. And one of those rules are that you have to know what the hell is going on. And I have seen far too many people who don't pay attention. They have time for every other damn thing. They can tell you about the stupid shows on TV. They can tell you all about the stories. But they can't even tell you who their congressman or congresswoman is. They can't even tell you about the main things that are going on in their community. Oh, well, we know the cops are giving people a hard time. Well, why is that happening?
Yeah,
why is
that happening?
Why is it that the cops will give certain communities don't get hassles by the police department? Because those communities make sure that the police in their community treat those people with respect. Why is that?
Why is that? Yeah.
Because the people in those communities that I'm thinking about, they do not allow the police in their community to basically treat them like garbage. They conduct themselves, as my dad used to say, they conduct themselves in such a manner, okay, that the police in that area don't dare, do not dare to do
And
things
why
to
don't they
people.
dare?
Because they know that they're going to be taken to court. They know that a lot of trouble will come down there.
Let's take this argument.
He said that the system
in another way
excels in pitting people against each other. So naturally,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a question of being pitted against each other.
You're going to get white people are going to be given certain.
Oh, I wasn't talking about whites. I wasn't talking about whites.
Well, I don't see policemen going into white communities and
I don't see them going into
helter skelter.
How many times I do not see police going into Asian communities,
right,
and killing people helter skelter. They're non-white. I don't see them going in the
So-
Jewish communities
Because
and killing people helter-skelter. And there's a strong feeling among Christian whites against Jews. But you don't see those people being usually being harassed and annoyed.
They're part of being pitted against people of color. Asians and Jews and other ethnic whites, they're being pitted against blacks and immigrants and Mexicans and you name it. And that's the way the system works.
Let me
It's
talk
nonsense.
something.
I don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm going to approach it from another perspective.
Okay, please go ahead.
Number one is this. Let's look at it from the standpoint of a prison. Now, prison has a warden. And when you choose a president, you are selecting someone from that class of leadership, the ruling class, from the uniparty called the Republican and Democrat. And what you have to do is decide which of those people that you're going to vote for.
Okay.
And you're one of the inmates or citizens, supposedly. And you have to understand that the mission of the warden is to do one thing, to maintain control over the prisoners. And the president, no matter whether it's Trump, no matter what's Obama, no matter what's anybody else, Nixon or any of the rest of the gang who became presidents, have one thing that they have to do, and that is reach the mission of the people who put them there. And the mission is to enrich the ruling class at the expense of the people. And whether you have Trump or Hillary Clinton or Obama or whatever, the mission is the same. And people have to get that through their head. The point is, this place is not set up to benefit the masses of people. It is benefiting the ruling class that is the very
You
top.
cannot become president of this country
No matter
without,
who it is.
without being under the complete control of the ruling class.
Again, I disagree, and I will tell you exactly why. Yesterday, we just saw where the head of the EPA, was sent home. Now, the reason that this guy was sent home was because his shenanigans just got to be too much. His thievery, his incompetence, his ignorance, his stupidity. The problem that you have now, and I hope...
His successor, by
hold
the
on a
way.
second. One has not been chosen.
Yes, it has. His deputy.
That's not his successor.
He will be the head of the EPA.
He's in charge.
And who is the
Excuse
who
me.
is this deputy?
That is not, like I say, that is not his successor. That was his deputy.
He will probably stay in there.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see.
And what did he do that was against the law?
What he did, the things that he did against the law, yes, he did. Number one, he constantly kept going and using for flight travel for expenses, okay? Traveling first class, traveling military, when there was no need for him to do so.
But that wasn't against the law.
Yes, it is against the law. Now, I can sit up here.
Then how come he's not going to be sent to jail?
That's a very good question. But I can sit up here. We don't have time for this, okay?
If
but
he's
I can sit up here.
a cabinet executive and he can't fly first class if he wants to?
No, not you cannot. See, people need to understand and know what it is that they're referring to. Just because you are a cabinet secretary, okay, that does not give you the right to fly first class unless you are going for a specific mission for the President of the United States. You just can't just up and say, well, I want to see something. I want to see how they remove garbage in Bangladesh, so I'm going to fly over there, and I'm going to fly first class. Doesn't work that way. And if you work inside government, you know, people know that. And see, he was doing a whole bunch of shit. Nepotism, all right? I could have nailed that guy at least 7 or 8 times. But see, that's not the point. The point is that none of this is going to get cleared up, but until you get working class whites, and see, this is my problem with these so-called fringe parties on the left. Because the problem is working class whites that will not stand up and deal with their own racism. There was no economic necessity whatsoever for Donald Trump to go into the White House.
Yes, there is.
Wait a minute, hold on a second now. Hang on a second. Because Trump went in there, he made all these spurious claims. We find out that those claims were not true. The economy was on a nice slow, it was going up on a slow glide, and it was going up. He hasn't done.
Going up for who?
It was going up. It was going up.
Not for the white working class.
If the white working class was so concerned about the economy going up, then why didn't they make that complaint 15, 20 years ago?
Because it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it was that bad. This economy, American economy has been going down since the late 70s.
That's right.
But they didn't want to do it. The thing that put Trump in the White House was actually Obama. Now hold on a second, Tom.
One party was also involved in outsourcing our economy. Was it just the Republican Party?
The Republican Party played the main part in doing the outsourcing. Don't hand me that crap, man, because I still know.
They were right up there with the Republicans outsourcing our economy.
No, don't hand me. Don't ever try and beat me on facts and figures. Do not, because the Republicans were the main ones.
Facts and figures from.
Okay, Congressional Report, New York Times. The Republicans were the main ones that were the main boosters for that. Okay, we were the ones for free trade.
These trade agreements that President Clinton supported.
The problem with the trade agreements was that the Republicans wanted to push the trade agreements with no safety net. The Democrats basically said, "Yeah, we got to have a free trade," and I agree with that because we don't live in the world by ourselves. See, I don't trust. You know what? I do not trust the fringe parties of the left because a lot of those people on the left sound just as bad as the right wing fascists.
We never had free trade.
Okay,
that's a myth. There was never free trade.
Yes, I don't know where you've been for the last 100 years, but yeah, there's been free trade, Tom.
Tell these underdeveloped countries that there's been free trade.
What are you talking about?
You don't understand what I just said?
No, I'm talking about here in the United States. Yes, and the United States has been a recipient and has done quite well in terms of free trade. Now, if you're saying that America has gotten some unfair advantages, and see, that's something else that the American people don't understand.
That's not part of trade.
The free trade has done very well by the American people. I guess what I'm saying, Tom, is I'm tired of hearing working class white people bitching all the time, okay, and screaming at black folks and brown folks and yellow folks about things that are really their own damn fault.
A lot of them didn't vote for the Democrats this time around, too. Why was that?
Because they feel that the Democratic Party represents people of color. Oh my God, man, they're on the TV all the damn time. Oh, my culture is being stolen from me. My culture is being taken from me. My country is being taken from me. What culture is that?
Who says that?
White working class people.
But that wasn't my question. My question was, why is it that a lot of blacks did not vote Democratic, did not even vote?
Because a lot of the blacks are basically, when it comes to politics, a lot of them.
Blame them too.
Oh, I most certainly will. I most
Blame
certainly
everybody
will.
but who you should blame.
No.
You should blame the system, and you should blame the Democratic Party and
Tom.
the people that run the Democratic Party who are part of the system.
I blame the Democratic Party for not standing up and having the balls to call it like it is.
Why don't they stand up?
Well, because like a lot of people, they don't want to stand up because they don't want to upset the system.
They don't want to upset their
I tell you what,
pocketbooks.
why doesn't these far left fringe parties, why don't they go out there? Why don't they stand up in these white communities? How come they're not out there in Ohio, in Missouri, in Arizona, in South Carolina, and stand up and say, listen, you need to stop your racism, because the fault is not with people of color. The fault is how you vote. Oh, well, we don't want to vote Democratic because all they want to do is give everything to people of color. They're walking around with their damn teeth falling out. Their kids don't have any damn shoes to put in their feet. You go to Walmart, they're all standing out there, vote Republican.
Who says this?
Working class white people, especially in the South.
But you're not answering my question.
I am answering your question.
I'm saying, why is it that even blacks, many of them, did not vote Democratic?
Where? Where are you talking about?
In this last election.
Where?
Throughout the country.
A lot of states, I'm going to tell you something. And the NAACP will document this. A lot of black people in many parts of the country are actually afraid to go out and vote, because so much has been done in terms of voter suppression that a lot of black people are afraid to go out and vote. In many of these states where you have Republicans in charge of the state houses, they have made it so difficult to go out and get voter registration cards.
And you're saying that was the major reason why many blacks did not vote Democratic this time around?
That's the major reason why many blacks did not vote. Yes,
I'd
that's
say
one of the major reasons.
There's more to it than that. Some of them did not vote because there's nothing to vote for.
You need, my man. You need. You know what? That's what happens when you don't have when you don't look at television.
No.
Because you don't get a lot of the news, the things, if you want to call yourself an activist, you need to know what the hell is going on.
Well, you're not going to find it by going to corporate.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're not going to find, with the information that I just gave you, I first found that out watching television. And then I found it out when the NAACP, personally sent me out.
You're not going to get them talking on
No,
television.
you are wrong, my friend. You are wrong.
They're not going to talk on television about the 50,000 factories that closed and let their businesses go overseas.
Many blacks were affected by that too. Many blacks that worked in the automobile industry in Detroit and in Flint, in these areas.
Listen,
you think that they're not mad as well, and that the Democratic Party let them down? You don't think they realize this?
I don't think. Look, in the first place, on that regard, this is what I know, because most blacks will tell you that the whites in many of these areas hold them responsible for the economic downturn. That's what's happening out there in the country. And I suggest that the Green Party gets up their ass. I'm so tired about this ruling class shit. You got a racist country, okay?
And it's the ruling class that run it, and they run the racism.
There is a black boy using the swimming pool. I don't think he belongs here. Please come over.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
There's a black child coming out here selling
the whole thing.
Selling lemonade.
Right.
Please come over here. Please come and get these black people out of my church. Somebody just dropped a chalice and it's causing a mess. This is in Maryland. And the goddamn archbishop had to call the priests up that same day and find another church for the people to have the funeral for the guy's mother. This was just yesterday. This is like happening every damn day. So please don't have me this nonsense about...
Are white people born racists?
Beg pardon?
Are white people born racists?
Nobody's born racist.
Okay, so how come they became racist?
Because they're basically programmed with a lot of stupid knowledge that they get from their parents.
Who?
From their silly parents.
From their parents?
Yes.
By the way, I happen to be from a white working class family.
I'm not saying, no one's saying
all. I was brought up in a white working class neighborhood.
Okay, well, good for you. You're one of the good ones.
And there were plenty of whites that in fact, I never remember anything ever being said in my family blaming blacks for their situation.
Well, right now, my friend, that's the way it is.
I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of racist whites. There are.
Unfortunately, Tom, that's the way it is.
To me, that's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that whites have been brainwashed into being racist by the ruling class.
Absolutely.
I totally disagree with that.
I would like to read you something. In fact,
I got 1:42 seconds left.
This was a quote from one of the most famous people in 150 years ago. Inasmuch most good things are produced by labor, it follows that such things of right belong to those whose labor has produced them. But it has also happened in all ages of the world that some have labored and others have, without labor, enjoyed a large proportion of the fruits of this labor. This is wrong and should not continue. To secure to each laborer the whole product of his labor, or as nearly as possible, is a most worthy object of any good government. You know who said that?
I really don't care.
Abraham Lincoln.
Good for him. Don't tell me.
So what I'm saying, and now, of course, a lot of insights were said by people like Abraham Lincoln.
Well, okay, hold on a second.
Jefferson, what have you. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of hypocrisy involved.
I got 30 seconds here. It's time for you to chill, brother. Well, as you see, we have a lot of disagreements here. And unfortunately, the program was not meant to turn out like this. But then, I should have known. All I can say to you out there in the family is that we're going to have an election coming up. And you know best what works for you. You know what your life has been. And the main thing that I want to see you do in your district is get up off your butt and go out there and vote. Because in America, that's the corner of the realm. Nothing else. No highfalutin political theory, no great debate between Karl Marx and Trotsky and versus Stalin and Kerensky, and probably names of a bunch of other people you know nothing about. But what does work and what does make people pay attention is the power that you have in that vote, so that when you make that call to that congressman or to that state assembly person, and they know who you are and they know that you're an active voter and participant in your district, that's when you begin to make effective change. We have forgotten how to do that. And I speak from knowledge and experience. My old man was a district leader in West Harlem and a candidate for the assembly. And my mom was right there by his side. And they fought many a battle so that black people in this city can walk with dignity and self-respect like any other American. Because remember, America is yours. You built it. Have a great weekend. Continue to enjoy it. Continue having your happy 4th of July. See you next Saturday, same time, same place. And this is the Concern Forum. God bless. Mm-hmm. If you all just cool your jets for a few. Mm-hmm.